Hello and welcome to this lecture. And in this lecture we will go ahead and talk something about class-based views or generic views in Django. So you already know what views actually are and how views are used in Django so as to go ahead and implement the functionality. So if you go to the views.py file of the food, these are the views which we have created until now. So as you can see, we have this view called as index, which is going to go ahead and display the list of items. We also have this detail over here, which is another view which is going to give the detail of each and every item. So if you notice these views, as you can see, we have defined those views as a Python function. So in Python, whenever you want to go ahead and define a function, you just type in def, then the function name, then you add the argument list over here, and then you write in some code over here, and then you return something. So this is the typical Python function which we use here. So that means we were writing the Django views until now using these Python functions or simply the functions, and henceforth these views which we have written until now are actually called as the function-based views. Now in Django there is another kind of view which is called as the class-based views. So the class-based views are nothing but the views which are written in terms of a class. So instead of having a function here, we can simply go ahead and write in a class for each one of these views right over here. So you don't have to write a function, instead you simply go ahead and write a class in here. Now using the class-based views, you can go ahead and write any kind of view which you want. So for example, there are actually multiple class-based views which we can use. So for example, this particular index view right here can be replaced by something which is called as the class-based list view. So what exactly is a list view? So a list view is nothing but it's sort of an inbuilt class-based view provided by Django, which can be used to list a particular set of items on your Django web app. So for example, in this particular index page, we have done exactly the same, that is, we have listed the food items, and henceforth this same view can be actually implemented by Django class-based views using something which is called as a list view. Now Django also provides other kinds of view as well, like the detail view, the create view, the delete view, and everything like that. So the detail view is nothing but it's actually a class-based view provided by Django, which can be used whenever you want to display or list out details of a certain model. So in this particular function-based view over here, that's exactly what the function-based view does. So this function-based view actually lists out the detail of a particular item. So this same functionality which we have implemented using a normal function-based view can be implemented by the generic Django view, which is called as the detail view. So these are the different kinds of class-based or generic views in Django which you can go ahead and use, and we are going to go ahead and make use of one of them over here and see how those class-based views are going to work. Now, even before we learn about class-based views, you also need to understand how views or how a Django application in general works. So in a particular Django app, we have this particular view, and this particular view is connected to the urls.py file. So if you go to the urls.py file of this particular app, as you can see, for the index view, we have this particular path. So every view is connected with a path. So the index view, which is the view which we have just seen over here, is connected. And this particular view is then again rendering a particular template, which is the index.html template. So this is the link which follows in every application. That is, you have a certain URL pattern. That URL pattern is associated with a view, and that view is associated with a certain kind of template. So this is the generic flow of any Django application, and whenever you want to write a class-based view, you also want to go ahead and follow the same pattern as well. That means if we go ahead and create a class-based view now, we need to go ahead and we need to connect that particular view with a URL, and we also need to mention the template in that particular view as well. So now let's go ahead and let's try to implement the index view as a class-based view. So first of all, we'll go ahead and identify what kind of view is the index view. So the index view, as we have already discussed, displays nothing but a list of items. So now that means this can be implemented by using a class-based list view. So what we will do here is that first of all we'll go ahead and import the generic view, which is the list view. So we'll type in from Django.views.generic.list import, that's going to be list view. So once we have this view imported, let's go ahead and create a class based view here. So just as for the function we use def, for the class we are going to use class, and in here you can name this view as anything. So I'll just go ahead and name this thing as index class view. But now, as I said, this particular view needs to actually be a list view. So we will go ahead and inherit the properties from the list view by mentioning list view over here. So that means this particular view, which is the index class view, is nothing but a list view. Now the good part about the class based view is that you don't have to actually write in much code in here. You simply need to define a few things in the class based view, and the class based view is going to do a lot of work for you. Now in this particular function based view, the first line of code which we have written here is that we have written the code to extract the items or objects from the item class right over here. That means we have queried this particular model. That means we have written a query to extract objects from the item model. But now in the class based view, we don't have to do all of these things, but we simply need to go ahead and mention the name of the model which we are using. So the model which we are using is nothing but item. So you simply need to mention that, and you don't have to write in the bunch of code which we have written up over here. So now let's go ahead and let's move on to the next part, which is to render a template. So now in case of a function based view, you have to return and render the particular template, and along with that you also have to process the request and also pass in the context. But in case of class based view, you simply have to go ahead and type in template underscore name and simply pass in the name of the template, which is in this case food/index.html. So as you can see, we have simply copied this name and we have used that name up over here. So that's it. So once you are done with this, the only final thing which you need to pass in here is that you need to go ahead and pass in the context as item list. So you need to go ahead and define the context object name here. So you simply need to type in context object name, and you just need to type in item underscore list over here, and you should be good to go. So this is actually the replacement for this view right here. So instead of writing this whole bunch of code and in a function based view, in a class based view, you only need to write in this many lines of code here. So now you can save this code, and now the final thing which we need to do is that now we need to go ahead and attach this view with the URL, so that whenever we visit that particular URL, we will actually be using the class based view. So let's go to the urls.py file, and in here, instead of having the name as views.index, we'll simply use this name right there. So let's go ahead and type in views.index class view. And now, as this is a class based view, you need to type in dot as view. So once we go ahead and save that code, what Django does is that whenever we visit the path which is /food, now it will be using the index class view, which is nothing but the list view. So now let's make sure if this thing works fine. So let me just open up my browser, and now let's actually go to /food. So when I go to /food, as you can see, this thing still works fine even if we have replaced the function based view with a class based view. So that's how class based view actually work, and we were successful in implementing the class based view. And the view which we have used here is that we have used the list view over here. Now similar to the list view, we can also create the detail view as well. So in the next lecture, what we will do is that we will go ahead and we'll try to recreate this particular view, which is detail, in form of a class based detail view. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.